going to start with my conclusion, and then as we go through, I'll show my workings. This is like going to a department store and finding the absolute best TV. It's not that expensive, but it has the best sound. It has perfect clarity. It's got awesome apps. You can stream from your phone straight away. Everything about it is absolutely perfect, but it doesn't come with a remote control. So you've got to get up and push buttons on the side of the TV. And in that case, you're probably not going to buy it purely because of that. That's like this. It's so near perfect, but there's one fundamental flaw that is probably going to turn you off buying it. This is the new Honda Prelude. What a fantastic idea it was for Honda to revive one of its iconic nameplates. And I think they've done a very good job in almost all areas, except this comes with a CVT transmission. Now, it's going up against the likes of the Mazda MX-5, the Toyota BRZ, Subaru 86, whatever you want to call them, Ford Mustang. Neither of those come, or none of those come with a CVT transmission. So it gives you a bit of an idea of its focus. It's a sports car. Now you might argue it's not a sports car, but then you look down here and you've got these massive, hardcore floating discs with Brembo brakes. They're straight off the Civic Type R. Now I don't know about you, but the last time I checked, vehicles that have hardcore brakes like that are usually pitched as sports cars or drivers' cars. So this is, in my opinion, a sports car. It's a two-door for starters. It's got a 2+2 seating arrangement. We'll check out the rear seats in a minute. They're pretty much useless, like they are in the Toyota 86 BRZ. MX-5 doesn't even come with rear seats. The Mustang seats in the back are also pretty confined, so there's no sort of demerit points there. But again, it comes back to this features a CVT transmission. Why? Under the bonnet, you've got the 2-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine paired with electric hybrid assist technology, lifted straight from the Honda Civic. Combined output is 135 kilowatts, exactly like the Civic, at least in Australian specification. 135 kilowatts doesn't sound that good either. Now, the MX-5 is not that powerful, but it is very light. It's about 1,000 kilograms. This weighs 1,468 kilograms. That's still quite light for modern standards, but for 135 kilowatts, the power to weight ratio isn't that impressive. Interestingly, the last Prelude generation that was on sale in Australia back in 2001, it featured a 2.2-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, producing 143 kilowatts, so more power than this, but it was much lighter. It was about 150 kilograms lighter, and you could get it with a 5-speed manual. And that's where I think Honda has just missed the mark. Like the Prelude, I know it's not about being it's never been about hardcore sports car. It's been more of a grand tourer, innovation. This doesn't really have anything innovative apart from Brembo brakes taken off a Civic Type R and a beautiful design. The design, I don't think anybody's going to argue that that design is not good. I think it looks absolutely fantastic, perfectly matches its previous generations. You've got a nice swooping roofline, elegantly swooping down to the wide rear end with a full width tail light, black trimmings down below, diffuser area at the back, and as standard you get these 19-inch black alloy wheels wearing 235/40 premium contact 6 Continental tyres. So yeah, it's got the makings of an attractive and overall appealing driver's car, just again let down by that CVT transmission. If they offered it with a 6-speed manual, I think that would really improve things. Even at that power level, I think it would massively improve the sort of attractiveness of it. After all, the MX-5, the BRZ, the 86, the Mustang are all offered with a manual. Even if they aren't as popular, the companies have just gone, no, we're still going to offer that for those who really want that engagement. And I think that's what Honda should have done with this. But also, this is basically a Civic two-door, so it's a less practical Civic. And I think the Civic can get away with a CVT because it is just a practical hatchback. It's an excellent car as well, like a really good handling, excellent efficiency, everything is great about it. So why would you spend around $15,000 more on this when all you're getting is hardcore brakes? But I doubt many people are going to take this to a track day, so the brakes are kind of useless. They're just a bit of, there, let's just throw some hardcore brakes on it to make it seem like a performance car. But then when you drive it, you're not going to use those brakes. I really doubt that you will anyway. Speaking of prices, this starts from $65,000 excluding on-road costs. And that's a lot of money, whatever way you look at it. If you're after a dedicated sports car, like a Mustang or something like that, I think the price is not bad. But again, this is kind of just a Civic that's two-door. I know it's pretty special and the name obviously carries a lot of weight, But yeah, I don't feel like it does enough, especially the, original Preludes. They offered something very different from any other Honda, like, big moonroof systems, four-wheel steering and so on. This does come with adaptive dampers, which is a good step above the regular Civic. So basically, yeah, you're paying for Brembo brakes, which you're probably not going to use, and then adaptive dampers, which are very good. So what's that, $5 more? This should be around $55,000, $5 more than a Civic, in my opinion. Up the back here, you've got this massive hatch lid opening up. Apparently 600 litres of boot space, but I can't see 600 litres there. It must be when you fold down the rear seats. The rear seats are right there. You can see there's not heaps of room. Leg room is not too bad, but headroom is the main thing. I'll jump in the back and show you, but basically you close this lid down. It's a similar story with the Mustang. You close the lid down and then your head is just, pretty much smashing into the rear windscreen there. And all of the sun and everything is beaming down on the back of your neck. So it's not the most comfortable place, but I get it. This is a two-seater. It's a coupe. It's not meant to be a family SUV. And then inside, beautifully presented interior, excellent build quality as per typical with modern Hondas, or all Hondas really. It carries over the cool intricate mesh grille treatment for the climate vents. It doesn't run all the way across like it does in the Civic. But yeah, you've got this nice soft touch material all around the dash and center console. Button operation for the gearbox, which is not too bad actually. It might seem a little bit unusual, but at least you know it's going into gear. You push drive, that's going into gear. It's not a fiddly stalk on the steering column. Sometimes they can be a little bit fiddly, whereas that, at least you know the buttons are there. If you push it, it will go into that gear. You've got some cup holders and a wireless charging pad down at the front there. But overall, yeah, it's a more driver-focused cabin. It's great to see Honda hasn't adopted the full screen takeover. So we've got all the climate controls down here. These light up when you start the vehicle, so you know what you're doing, your fan speed and so on. And then you've got a neat and tidy touchscreen. I think this is perfectly suitable for a driver's package because it's not distracting. It's not trying to be, boast all these types of features and yeah, just take over the whole interior. It is just a touchscreen. You can show your maps. You've got a rear view camera and all of that. I think that's a perfect setup for this style of vehicle. Jumping in the back, you've got this little lever that just pops forward the seat. The seatbelt does get in the way, even on the passenger side, which is probably the side you're going to be using the most. But yeah, I'm pretty short. I'm 170 centimeters and I'm not very comfortable back here. That pillar is just right where my head is, but I guess you could lean in a little bit. But even then, my head is, pretty much hard up against the glass. If you're much taller than me, I think you'd start to feel quite claustrophobic and uncomfortable. Again though, for this segment, the 86 and the BRZ, as I said, the Mustang, they're all pretty confined and tight in the back. I think the Mustang's probably the biggest. If you are looking to use the rear seats in a two-door sports car, you've still got the problem with the windscreen, but the overall length of the Mustang is quite long, so it just accommodates a bit more legroom. I've got hardly any legroom here. By the time I flip the seat forward, it hasn't slid back, but yeah, you can kind of imagine that's going to be hard up against my knees. All right, let's take this for a drive. Maybe it can redeem itself with a awesome driving character. We'll do the performance test later on as well. Firstly, how does it perform or behave as a GT car, a Grand Tourer, which is perhaps what the Prelude has always been about from the beginning? Well, firstly, fuel consumption is absolutely outstanding. I'm averaging 5.8 litres per 100 kilometres. That's included some performance testing and spirited driving. Excellent real-world economy. So that means you can go for a nice big drive and you're not going to start to feel guilty or start to feel nervous about filling it back up with fuel. Also, the suspension helps out. So along here, this is a pretty ordinary country road, lots of bumps and stuff, and it's soaking them up nicely, but it's still got that sporty feel. I think Honda has done an excellent job balancing the suspension between comfort while retaining, body control and composure. Switching between the different damper modes definitely makes a big difference. In the comfort setting, it is more relaxed, so perfect for driving around in the city. But then you've got the GT mode, which is awesome for country roads. It absorbs impacts while maintaining good body stability. And then in sport mode, it is much firmer, really only suitable if you're pushing it pretty hard and really smashing over bumps. There's hardly any wind noise. It seems to be very sleek through the air, especially around the side mirror there. I can't hear anything at all, whereas some vehicles, you can just sort of start to hear a bit of swirling going on, a bit of whooshing going on. There's a little bit of road raw, but not too bad. This is, you know, a fairly serious package. Big wheels and so on, low profile tires, so it is going to have some sort of echoing and a bit of raw happening, but I don't think it's worth any demerit points. Visibility is great all out the front. I love that you've got a gap between the mirror and the pillar there. The pillar itself is also quite thin. It's not this, you know, very chunky setup like some modern vehicles. And then, yeah, I can see over the front end nice and easily. I can even see part of the front wheel arch there poking up. So I've got a good sense of where the vehicle is positioned on the road, and that does add to the kind of sporty and engaging character. The steering is lovely. I've got plenty of communication coming through. It's a nice weight. It's not too heavy, but not too light. Even the steering wheel just feels good to be behind the wheel. Now we've got a number of different drive modes to choose from, including individual, sport, GT, and comfort. Put it into the sport mode. You've also got the S Plus mode. So this is mainly for the transmission, and it gives you that sort of 8-speed automatic type of feel to it. And it really does mimic an automatic, except the upshifts are a little bit kind of slurred and a little bit, yeah, you can tell that this is either a very old automatic transmission or based on a CVT. But I mean, it does add a bit of engagement, and it's got a bit of a rev matching as well. It upshifts by itself, so it won't take it all the way up to red line. But we'll go do some sporty driving now on a more spirited road and just fully put this stuff to the test. So I'll leave it in the S Plus mode. We can play around with the gearbox. So this road is very interesting because it's got a lot of bumps and it's quite steep. So we can kind of test the acceleration going up a steep hill. But yeah, mainly further up, we've got some, I wouldn't call them sharp bumps. That's just where the earth has started to sort of move up, and it really unsettles the car. Not good for the car, but great for testing. And so far, yeah, it's very, very dedicated, confident, precise, and controlled. So it's full power. So that's second gear apparently. It's shifted up by itself. Just here we've got a big bump. It didn't get upset too much, didn't get too disturbed. Remained very controlled and committed. Although I think it did sort of get close to bottoming out. Awesome handling though, like this is giving me plenty of feedback through the wheel. I know exactly where the car is placed in the road as well. Very good. Going back down now, as the Drift King used to say, real men race downhill. This puts a lot of pressure on the brakes obviously, so those Brembos are gonna really shine here. But also we unweight the rear end quite a bit because of how steep it is. Not quite here, but further down. It's a bit annoying how it upshifts, or you know, whatever it's doing, artificially upshifting by itself, because what's the point of having the paddle shifters? And it's not even getting near the red line and it's already upshifting. But the downshifts are nice. Blipping of the throttle. Awesome front end grip. Yeah, look, this is it's a lot of fun and it's very capable, there's no doubt about that. The suspension is absorbing these impacts nicely in the sport mode. I think if you're in the comfort mode, it might be a little bit too cushy. But yeah, overall, tire squeal, that's, yeah, very, very capable. Overall, I think this is as I said at the beginning, it's so close to being perfect, but the thing that's stopping it from being perfect is kind of a deal breaker. Like, I'm a driving enthusiast. I love cars. I want an MX-5. I want a BRZ 86. I want a Mustang. I just kind of don't really want this. I would love it if it had a manual, then it would change everything dramatically. But with the CVT, I just don't have that connection with it like you do with anything with a manual or even a normal automatic. But I think it's great that Honda has revived an iconic badge. I think it should do more of that because it has history there and it's got a lot of fans that it could carry through to the next generation. So yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea that Honda has brought out the new Prelude. It is an excellent package. I think it is a little bit too expensive. If it were me though, I'd probably just buy a Civic, regular Civic hybrid, because you're basically getting the same package apart from the adaptive dampers and the big Brembo brakes. And if you want that, you know, step up. I mean, it's another $20,000 to get the Type R, Civic Type R. that's the one you go for if you're a serious driving enthusiast. Whereas this, it just kind of sits in the middle somewhere, but it's not, it doesn't make you want to lean towards it as over the others. Like the Civic does pretty much everything this does, just doesn't have the adaptive dampers. But then if you're that serious, you'd go with the Type R. So yeah, I don't know. It just sits in a weird spot for me anyway. Feel free to tell me your thoughts in the comments below. But for now, we'll go off and do the performance test and see how it goes. Okay, this time with the S Plus mode.